What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. All right, before we get out of here today, let's talk a little Steph Curry. Puts up 52 points on the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies have been a truly abysmal defense for a while now. They lean on a lot of weaker defensive players. Zach Edey can struggle in space. He's been dealing with a bunch of nightmare matchups in the last week. Santi Aldama is bad in his food and gets attacked every time down the floor. Ja Morant has his moments, but he's just really small. He had a little moment where he guarded Steph Curry for a few possessions in that game and stayed attached to him pretty well because he's such a freaky athlete. But he's just small and he has a lot of offensive responsibility. It's a lot to ask. And to make matters worse, they're just spiraling in general as a team. They're down to the 8th seed and all things are looking pretty bleak for the Grizzlies. But just in the last week, the Grizzlies at home, all at home, have given up the most points the Lakers have scored in a game that Luka, LeBron, and Austin have all played in, the most unguarded catch-and-shoot threes that the Celtics have generated in a single game all season, and 52 points to Steph Curry, all in 1 week, all at home. Point being, if you want to get your offense going, go to Memphis and play the Grizzlies. There were two main factors that were causing the Grizzlies to have so much trouble guarding Steph. He did hit a lot of really tough contested shots in this game. You're not getting to 50 points unless you can hit tough contested shots. And Steph has looked fantastic. That's the subplot here is Steph is just peaking right at the right time, preparing for this playoff run. He's averaging 28 points per game on sky-high 66% true shooting in his last 23 games. And again, that to me is where you want Steph to be. You don't need Steph to be 2021 32 points a game, kind of lower efficiency, just but trying to create everything himself. This is a version of the team where you want him more like the 2022 version of Steph, where he's in that high 20s range, super efficient, picking his spots. There's a team concept that he's thriving in, right? Steph's playing great. But his offense in this game was supplemented by two things. One, drop coverage with Zach Edey. Steph got almost a dozen really clean looks in this game because Zach Edey was sitting right underneath the basket, ignoring Draymond, and Draymond was just setting these monster screens on Jalen Wells. And so as a result, Steph is able to just come free and clear off of these screens. And I clipped a few examples on my Twitter feed, by the way, so go to @_JasonLT and you guys see some examples of what I'm talking about. But this was the coverage the Spurs used against Steph back in 2013. This is the coverage that all of us freaked out about back in 2022 when the Celtics tried to use this coverage in the finals. Drop coverage concedes pull-up jump shots. Steph Curry is the greatest pull-up jump shooter in the history of basketball. That is the shot that coverage concedes. It is suicide against Steph Curry. Just statistically, the last time the Warriors scored as many points from a pick-and-roll ball handler in a single game this year was way back on February 10th against Milwaukee, another drop coverage team that struggles to get up to the level. That's what happens when you run this coverage against the Warriors. The second piece of this was Memphis doing some really sloppy top blocking and denial. The Grizzlies gave up 1 million back cuts in this game. Top blocking is a common strategy that you'll see against the Warriors. Essentially, all that means is if Steph is trying to come off of an off-ball screen towards the top of the key, instead of getting behind him and locking and trailing him, you top block so that he has no choice but to back cut, right? Denial more or less accomplishes the same thing. If Steph is flashing to get the ball and you're just to catch and you're just in the passing lane denying, it concedes a back cut. If you're going to concede back cuts as part of top blocking and denial, you need to have backside help, and there was just no backside help. And so there were just so many of these situations where they were giving up these back cuts and just getting these super clean looks. And this is where I want to shout out Draymond Green too, because I talk a lot about this concept on the show, but the idea of your value in a vacuum versus your value on your specific team. Draymond Green's offensive value in a vacuum is not as high as it is specifically on this team. And one of the main reasons why is because they run this motion 5-out offense with all this cutting and screening. And Draymond is just incredible at reading those plays develop. If you picked up Draymond and put him on the Lakers, where it's more of a spread pick and roll type of situation, yeah, he'd have some success as a short roll guy off of Luka and blitzes, but he's not going to be able to unlock that high post passing part of his game. The high post passing part of his game is uniquely valuable in a system like this where there's all this off-ball cutting and screening. And he just does a wonderful job hitting Steph and Jimmy and all these guys in these cuts, in these slips out of those screening actions. Again, his value offensively is uniquely super high on this Warriors team. That's really all that matters. Steph got his rhythm from all the easy ones he was getting from those defensive breakdowns, and then he just torched them with the tough ones to get up to the 52. The last piece that I want to talk about is the two-man game between Jimmy and Steph. They ran it 3 times down the stretch in this game and got great looks every single time. I put all 3 of these clips in a single tweet on Twitter. So again, go to my Twitter feed at _JasonLT so you guys can see it. Since we had to wait till today to cover these games, I just wanted to get all that stuff out on Twitter so you guys can see it there. But there's basically 3 different types of actions, all that involve Steph and Jimmy together. And again, whether it's off ball or on ball, the coverage concepts more or less stay the same. But in these situations, Santi did 3 completely different things. And in those 3 completely different things, the Warriors burned them every single time. First one, Steph driving right around the top of the key. Jimmy sets a ball screen for Steph. When Jimmy sets the screen, Santi Aldama is the screen defender. But instead of showing or helping or dropping or anything, he just stays glued up to Jimmy Butler around the right lane line that allows Steph to turn the corner because his man is getting screened. And Steph gets downhill and makes a little right-handed scoop shot in the lane over the rim protector. Okay? The second part of the sequence, an off-ball action. Believe Draymond was the passer, if I remember correctly. There is a off-ball screen that Jimmy Butler sets for Steph Curry going towards the left corner. In this situation, Santi Aldama runs kind of like a modified drop coverage. Again, this is an off-ball action, but the actions still have similar coverage concepts or principles to what you have in an on-ball situation. Santi's the screen defender. He's not glued up to Jimmy. He's kind of sitting on the other side of the screen, just like 10 feet back from Steph. That's not going to work. Santi offers a token late contest, but it doesn't bother Steph at all. He drills the 3 out of the left corner. Then, on the final play in the sequence, same sort of deal. Steph Jimmy 2-man game out by the top of the key. Santi's been burned twice. Gave up the drive to Steph, gave up the 3 to Steph. So what does he do? He hedges. Santi throws a hedge out at Steph. When he throws that hedge out to Steph, that opens up the slip for Jimmy. Steph hits him right in the pocket. That's the one where Jimmy got what should have been an and one, but they ended up calling the foul on the floor, and so he had to go to the line to make both free throws. But that slip there that became open was part of that decision-making process that you make defenses go through because of the Steph Jimmy 2-man game, which you don't want to switch because they're 2 very different types of players. A player who's fast enough to track Steph around is probably not going to be strong enough to deal with Jimmy in an ISO situation. And a player who's big and strong enough to deal with Jimmy in an ISO situation probably isn't going to be fast enough to deal with Steph out on the perimeter. The fundamental concept of any great 2-man game is dictating or by drawing different types of defenders, right? This is why the LeBron Anthony Davis 2-man game never really took off with the Lakers. How are you guarding LeBron? Big, strong forward. How are you guarding Anthony Davis? Big, strong forward. You can switch. Every once in a while, you'd see LeBron and AD face a team that had to, guard Anthony Davis with Nurkic, for instance, like the Suns. One of the reasons why the Lakers always dominated the Suns was they could just run ball screens. They had to run drop coverage. LeBron and AD would torch them in drop coverage. But Steph and Jimmy, very different archetypes of players. They're going to draw very different types of defenders. They're going to be less susceptible to switching in those sorts of situations, right? And so that's kind of like the core concept that makes that 2-man game so effectively. And then even when teams do switch, Jimmy's like so damn good at inside seals. And in those inside seals, he can create that over-the-top passing angle. He's so good at high-pointing the ball. He's so good at getting to the line. He had another play down the stretch in this one where he pump faked on Jaren Jackson and drew a foul. Like that's like one of his superpowers that's just so valuable to this particular team. I'm super excited for tonight's showdown against the Lakers. We are going live on YouTube after the final buzzer of Warriors-Lakers tonight. We're also going to do another one of those kind of like chat mailbags, so make sure you guys come hang out. The big matchup for tonight is perimeter speed versus perimeter size. The Lakers are susceptible to some perimeter speed. The Warriors are susceptible to some perimeter size. It's going to be like that styles make fights concept I talk about. Will the Warriors use their speed more effectively than the Lakers use their size? Couple keys to the game to pay attention to. LeBron and Luka punishing smalls. I think that's going to be a huge part of their attack. Not turning the ball over to avoid the Warriors getting out in transition. Luka's shot making, I think, is going to be huge in this game. Steph getting the defense into rotation. Speed can be a problem for the Lakers. If Steph does a good job through his motion of just compromising the Laker defense and getting them into rotation, that's where their lack of foot speed can be an issue. And then the Warriors non-shooters, Gary Payton, Brandon Podziemski, Draymond Green, these guys, JJ Redick is going to concede 1,000,000 threes to those guys tonight. And so those guys are going to have to be able to knock those shots down to keep the defense honest. Super excited, huge game, major seeding implications, star power all over the place. Just one of those like classic regular season moments. I'm super, super excited about it. We'll get into it tonight after the final buzzer. I will see you guys then. As always, I thank you guys for supporting me and supporting the show, and I will see you tonight.